Welcome to That's So Savvy, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories and journeys of remarkable business leaders. Join our host, Nancy Aichholz, a seasoned professional and experienced entrepreneur, on her mission to discover the recipe for business success.
Welcome back, Savvy listeners. This is a recap of Season 3, The Savvy Business of Food. So why did I want to explore the business of food anyway? I think probably because of my background in food, starting with my carrot cake company, and then That's So Sweet cookies. But also I love food. I love to eat it. I love to make it. I love to research it. I love to look at recipes. I love to read cookbooks. It's just my thing. And the business behind it, I find fascinating. So it was so fun to talk to all of these guests this season and really talk about food as a business, because food is something absolutely every human being on the planet needs. We started the season with Le Soup, and everyone needs food, and Le Soup makes sure that people who have food insecurities are able to access good, healthy, wholesome food, not just junk and not just something that they happen to be able to access. We also talked a lot with Emmy Schroeder at Le Soup about food waste and about dignity, the dignity that a good meal brings to someone, the community impact of food insecurity, and Le Soup's mission to save that food. There's a ton of food waste, and yet we have a ton of food insecurities. I also love the purpose-driven entrepreneurship aspects of Le Soup. Food can nourish far more than hunger. It creates connection, dignity, and hope. And Le Soup does that beautifully. So I love that episode. It was a great way to kick off our Season 3.
We know what we do. We know what we do well. We can continue to solidify the piece of the puzzle that we fit into. We are the chef-driven piece. There are others that are great at logistics and great at distribution. And we will keep chefs at our core, and we will be engaged through our culinary education, and then continue our beliefs in environment and making sure we're diverting as much as we can, and nutrition and outreach, and ensuring that the culinary skills reach as many people as we can.
Next, we took a little bit of a detour and we talked to the Cancer Vaccine Coalition. That really broadened the meaning of food and wellness. It wasn't so much about food, but it's a lot about wellness and a lot about health and humanity and advocacy for our health and resilience for all these people who have had breast cancer, and scientific innovation that hopefully will keep these women and men from having recurrent breast cancer, and hopefully someday figure out how to knock this horrible disease out of our community entirely. Food and health are seriously interconnected. There's so much research now about what we eat and how it affects our bodies. Consumers are thinking differently about wellness these days. That was a really intriguing, meaningful, I thought deep episode that you should go back and listen to, because we covered a lot of topics there and a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope in the Cancer Vaccine Coalition future.
This is non-political. Cancer vaccines. Cancer doesn't impact one party over another. And the NIH director, I was really encouraged to see saying, we think mRNA cancer vaccine research is really promising and should be pursued. I'm really hopeful that we're able to get this widespread national program and platform going for this. In the UK, they're giving out 10,000 cancer vaccines as part of clinical trials. They've allowed their cancer vaccine researchers to work with the supercomputer, so they're able to even accelerate it more. Other countries like Russia and China are working on cancer vaccines. This is something that globally is being developed, but this is a really crucial time for the United States to do what we do really well, and that's innovation and biomedical innovation. And so I'm hopeful that this is something that everyone can get behind, because it really doesn't fall on one side or the other. And I think this is something that could actually unify all of us, because who wants their loved one or themselves to suffer through cancer? And so I would just encourage everyone to learn more and reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions.
Next, we talked to a couple of different guests more about hospitality and experience. And those things matter more than ever. So many food options are out there and so many people are eating out. It's fascinating to me. I feel like we may be losing a little bit on the cooking at home experience, but I think we've really gained on the dining out experience. There's options from food trucks to 5-star restaurants. We sat down with a good friend of mine, Roger David, who is the CEO of Gold Star here in Cincinnati. It's a fast casual restaurant that's been around for ages. It's a family business for him. It was his grandparents or his grandfather and his great uncle, I believe, who started it as a burger place. It became then one of the many chili parlors in Cincinnati. He has come in, he is an expert in branding, and he came in and really looked at Gold Star and what it is. And it's a gathering place. And they went back to their roots and brought back their burger menu. And they have a very broad menu now. It's definitely not just chili, but it has history and it's a regional brand that customers are loyal to. And there are evolving consumer expectations that Roger and Gold Star are really working to meet. And he is wonderful with brand reinvention. And that's exactly what he's done there. But he's kept the familiarity, he's kept the authenticity, the experience, and the emotional connection that his consumers have come to know at Gold Star.
Gold Star's history is we started in the burger business and then we transitioned to the chili business. Well, no other brand out there started in the burger business and transitioned to chili. So for me, that gave us a little bit of consumer kind of alignment to explore that area.
Right.
Tagline was, well, we're bringing the burgers back, baby, kind of thing. It was the whole idea. We knew that meaningful differentiation had 3 components to it. It had a menu component to it. It had a facility upgrade component to it. And it had a service level upgrade as a portion of that. And so we began our journey kind of trying to nail those 3 things down.
Yeah.
So we put singles and doubles on the menu. We added shakes. We added a garlic parmesan fry. And then ultimately we added a fried chicken sandwich, and we kind of expanded that menu. While we were expanding the menu, our volumes were going up as we were remodeling locations and relocating certain locations. It became also an exit strategy for some franchisees that have been with us for a long time.
Okay.
So there were a lot of things kind of coming to head. And over the course of that 10 years, I would say, we've remodeled all the locations. We've put the new menu in place, upgraded the service levels, and we've had great results from all of those efforts. So that's been great.
Next on the hospitality front, we went to the CVG Airport. That is the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky International Airport, and visited with Gina Jenko. Actually, we visited with her in a beautiful hotel in Covington called Hotel Covington. You should come here someday. But we were talking to Gina about the future of consumer food experiences and how you eat your way through an airport and why has food become so much more important in the travel experience, and how does it work? How does a vendor get into an airport? How do they survive? What does it mean to the airport to have enhanced food, dining, and retail experiences for our travelers, and how airports are really like mini cities? CVG has done a really great job of bringing the greater Cincinnati region into the airport for the people from our area to celebrate and for people visiting our area to get a great first impression of our region. That was a really fun conversation. It's convenience without sacrificing experience. It's local identity. It's quality in customer service. It's quality in the foods that are available. And it makes for a really pleasant airport environment, which I think then enhances the whole travel experience.
at the heart of it all, the passenger journey and the passenger experience is the heartbeat of everything that we do. That is what we ask ourselves anytime we make a decision. We want to make sure it's hospitable for folks. We want to make sure that the speed of service is there. And we want to make sure that there's a good experience overall from the moment people reach our doors, because that's really what we're seeing is that people's expectations are not dropping when they enter the airport. They're actually superseding, and the expectation of here's what I'm seeing on the street side carries over into the airport setting.
Okay.
So for us, when we think about local and regional cuisine, that is really the biggest piece of how the concessions program has evolved over the years.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice we have Grater's ice cream, for example, Frisch's, which is very nostalgic for people here locally. And knowing that they've closed quite a number of locations on the street side, people really do seek that out in the airport setting. I'll have passengers come up to me all the time and say, where's the Frisch's? And are eager to get that big boy.
Big boy.
Exactly. We do sell the tartar sauce.
Oh, that's a great
jars from a retail perspective within the Frisch's location. Skyline Chili. So having a chili parlor, exceptionally well known here in the region, is important too for the overall program, meeting that passenger preference. And we still see that having national favorites is also important. The way our program is sort of set up is we've got that mix of national favorites and then local brands. It's been a great evolution to be a part of. And I think for us, passenger preference and the passenger journey is what keeps us going.
Next, we talked to Chef Albert from Artisan Foods in Texas. He's innovating food products. He brings products like That's So Sweet, I'm working with him, to market in a commercial, scalable way, bringing foods that I could make in a small retail location here. But if we work with a major co-packer, then we can bring That's So Sweet cookies to people all over the country and beyond. So he does that with multiple products. He uses craftsmanship, quality. His creativity in the culinary world is really interesting. There's local sourcing that goes on. There's national sourcing. There's international sourcing. And of course, hospitality, because the whole idea is to bring good foods to lots of people. And people still crave authenticity and human touch. So even though a product is scalable and gets scaled, it still needs to have that personal touch. And that's what Chef Albert does.
In Artisan, we do not have a brand per se. We work with others that to make their brand or their product, right? So a lot of private label. Being a good communicator and listening to the pain points of your clients is huge. And I think from a chef's perspective, we think we know everything. And there's a point where you get humbled and you realize you don't know everything, right? The client knows their customer. The client is knee deep and entrenched with their brand. You really have to now take a step back, listen, and then create product, right? I think until you know it, the learning curve is over, and then you could actually help and maybe help support as well. Chefs are we have some great attributes where if a house is on fire, I want a chef to go find me, right? They're really good at getting things done. But at the end of the day, we really have to be better listeners as well. I think that's really important. And organizational skills too. We're used to being such a reactive world. Once I went to the corporate side, you realize, oh wait, you can be proactive. You can think things out. You can take time to learn and then have that curiosity.
Other people we talked to, we really talked about reinvention and entrepreneurship. So Amy Tobin has been a part of the greater Cincinnati community for years, and she has been in multiple food-based businesses, from being a chef to being a radio personality talking about food to being the expert at Hearty Source here in our region on the food side. We talked about career building around food. We talked about food entrepreneurship, which is fascinating. We talked about branding, not just for products, but personal branding. And we talked about her own personal evolution through some very difficult times. And food became the core touchstone for her in these difficult times. Food careers are changing. We talked a lot about that. Modern entrepreneurship. And many times it's around food and the experience of food. And then she has been an expert at building her personal brand through her own expertise. And I think there's some really great learning in that.
I mean, I think that's always been my personal approach to food is relatable, pretty easy to execute food because I don't do anything other than that, really. I do on occasion, but you know what I mean. But I would agree it would be tragic because, number one, so many of our nutrition issues would be solved if we cooked at home.
Yeah.
So many more trips could be taken, gifts could be given if you cooked at home, because the cost differential is enormous.
Yeah.
And especially for those who, like I talked about earlier, cannot afford to go to Turner Farm. I did a class a long time ago for Dress for Success. I did a lentil soup, a delicious lentil soup, and it was about 10 cents a serving.
Oh my gosh.
If you think about that, if you're trying to feed a family of 5, you could in reality, not always, and it's harder and harder and you have to be careful, but make dinner for under $1.
We also spoke with Lauren Fernandez, CEO and founder of Full Course in Atlanta. And that, to me, was one of the most fascinating because I didn't know this existed. She is not just an accelerator for food businesses, because there's plenty of those. She is also an equity fund that invests in early stage food companies. And that is really unusual. And I think she's really on the cutting edge of something that's so critical because everyone on the planet needs to eat and everyone should have good food. And therefore, we need to have better food businesses, and food businesses fail frequently because they don't have funding, and it takes funding to scale. So we talked a lot about innovation in the food industry. We talked about scaling ideas and scaling concepts. Consumer engagement is critical. We talked about that. And then entrepreneurship in evolving markets. Today's entrepreneurs really have to constantly adapt. And she is helping food entrepreneurs do that. Food businesses are becoming much more like an experience. It's an experience business and not just the food. And this is where Lauren, I think, is really hitting it out of the park.
Nancy, the other thing I will say is that I'm going to focus on the Latino segment as a specific example. But we are 20% of the U.S. population and represent over 40 countries unified under one language. We are 28% of the restaurant workforce, and we are overwhelmingly in that 28% in lower paying back of house jobs that are unsalaried. There is also this notion that there's a sort of differentiation between skilled and unskilled labor in a restaurant when those positions in back of house are the anchor and backbone of the restaurant industry. There's a joke saying, like, if you want good Italian food, you want good Japanese food, you want good insert culture here, there's going to be someone who's Hispanic in the kitchen making it. It's kind of an alarming joke, but it's absolutely accurate. And it's depiction of what's really happening in the stats in the industry. And so there's also this disrespect for people who cook the food for us. And let's be clear, you need food, you need shelter, you need water and air to live. And so people who are actively providing for this country, right? One of our key elements for survival.
The next part of our season, this was, they were all my favorites. I loved all of the episodes this season, but I'm still just fangirling, geeking out about having the Julia Child Foundation on my podcast. I had so much fun with that. Julia Child started it all for all of us in the food industry. She brought food and making food in your own kitchen to an entirely new level. And I'm sure that somehow, even though I sort of missed her era, I am sure that she ultimately impacted my interest in food, my desire to improve my cooking skills, my desire to share food with friends. She has a culinary legacy like no one else. She was a storyteller. She was brilliant. She educated herself in cooking while she was over in Paris. She created a whole food culture for all of us in books and was the first to have a televised food show, which now is a huge industry. Julia Child helped make food feel joyful, approachable, communal, and that spirit still influences food culture today. And she was a wonderful person. She had a beautiful marriage. She was smart. She was accomplished. She was a woman that had her own mind and used it way before her time. And that was just such a fun trip down memory lane with the Julia Child Foundation. Storytelling matters so much in food brands, and consumers connect emotionally to food personalities. And she started that for us.
People instantly feel and is genuinely naturally interested in other people. Julia would never talk about herself, and she would instantly launch into a polite battery of questions about you. She would learn your name before you met her, and it was genuine. And so she was just kind of one of those people that, like, once you're in orbit, you were just felt like the center of the universe. Several things happened that kind of catapulted her legacy. And one of the starting points with that was the Julie and Julia movie that came out in 2000, I think it's 2009 when it got released. And I think I came on board a little bit after that because that really sort of solidified. I mean, when Meryl Streep plays you in a movie, it's going to solidify your legacy. And then I think also her biography, My Life in France, that she co-wrote with her grandnephew, Alex Prudhomme, which is a beautiful book to read in addition to just being informative. Those two things really helped capture this mystique about her life, which is very inspiring because I always say, and I've written in different things, that she's the last person you would cast, at least in central casting, to star in a cooking show. She's too tall. She has a funny voice. She's goofy, like not at all what would be on paper. But because of that, she's so relatable. And then she was so authentically herself and so enthusiastic. Those all made her beloved. And then on top of that, the fact that she found her calling late in life. She was in her 30s before she even realized she was interested in cooking or that it could be a career. And she was 50 by the time Mastering the Art had been published and she was suddenly on TV. I think all of those things, it's a kind of defying the odds thing that is just really inspiring to people.
So what I found this season is what consumers want. They want authenticity. They want experience. They want connection. They want local identity. They want trust. They want memorable hospitality. And the entrepreneurs behind these food companies or the big businesses behind the food opportunities like the airport, they need to provide these things. And I think our culture is doing a great job at that. And all of these guests are all doing this and they're all doing it well. I think what surprised me most about the season was just how emotional food conversations can become and how resilient food entrepreneurs are. Actually, I wasn't surprised about that because I am one and I get it. And I'm sorry, it is darn hard to have a food business. And so when people do succeed and do well, it is nothing short of a miracle and tons of hard work. So as we move on to season 4, make some changes in season 4 a little bit. I think instead of having one full theme the whole season, we are going to have 2 or 3 different sets of vignettes throughout the season that will cover different things. So stay tuned to what that's going to be. We're talking about all kinds of different things. Thank you so much because our savvy listeners have grown dramatically in this past season. You've been very engaged. Don't forget to always download, always share, always like, and always please give us a 5-star rating. We're up to nearly 43,000 listeners. We have strong engagement across all of our platforms. And our growth in 2026 was exponential. And we really appreciate all that our listeners have done for us over the last 3 seasons. And we're excited to bring you into season 4 coming soon. That's So Savvy podcast is supported by wonderful listeners like you. If you would like to hear more of our podcast and be more involved, please go to patreon.com, patreon.com, and you can donate as little as $5 a month or as much as you'd like to support That's So Savvy podcast. If you'd like to advertise and reach our rapidly growing audience, please email us at thatssosavvypod, P-O-D, @gmail.com. That's sosavvypod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And we look forward to bringing That's So Savvy podcast to you for a very long time in the future.